get your latest news headlines. Good afternoon, it's 4:01. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. Police will meet a senior Conservative backbencher to discuss allegations of blackmail and intimidation. William Bragg has accused Downing Street of bullying and claims Tory whips have threatened to withdraw public funds from the constituencies of MPs trying to oust the Prime Minister. He'll speak to a Met detective next week, which means police could potentially open an investigation. Meanwhile, former independent MP Martin Bell expects more Tories to submit letters of no confidence in the PM.
What's happening is in itself quite alarming. I was elected in 1997 on an issue of integrity in public life. And I think the situation now is, if anything, worse than it was then. I think it is serious. And I also think that the Prime Minister is in an incredibly precarious situation. And I would expect more of those letters to be put in sometime next week.
Well, meanwhile, at a rally in Glasgow, there have been calls for the Prime Minister to resign. The pro-independence group, All Under One Banner, staged a march with members demanding the end of Tory rule. Boris Johnson is facing increasing pressure to quit now after admitting and apologising for going to a party at Downing Street during lockdown. Unvaccinated NHS workers are demonstrating against mandatory jabs. They've been marching through central London and gathering in Trafalgar Square. They laid their uniforms on the ground to protest against government plans to sack staff who've not had their COVID vaccines by the 1st of April.
31st of March, I'll be sacked after nearly 48 years in the NHS.
People want me, I don't know if the government wants me to have a vaccine that I don't want to have. They want me to put something in my body that I don't want to put in my body.
The UK is taking steps to try to ease tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace will head to Moscow to speak to his Russian counterpart after the UK's invitation to discuss security was accepted. It comes after Downing Street warned that Russia will be punished if the country pushes ahead with any destabilising action. Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Tom Tugendhat told GB News by sending weapons to Ukraine, the UK is helping the country to defend itself.
Because I hope it will persuade Putin that this is a really daft idea. Because whatever he manages to do in the initial punch, and he's got the armour, he's got the men to invade, there's no question about that. But the occupation would be extremely difficult, as the Ukrainians would fight for their own country. So I hope very much what we're doing is we're dissuading Russia so that Putin doesn't make this daft decision.
US police say a British astrophysicist who was fatally shot in Georgia was killed by a stray bullet. Dr. Matthew Wilson, who was visiting family, was lying in bed when he was hit. The 31-year-old was found dead at 2 a.m. last Sunday. Police described the incident as a random act, saying his death appears to be the result of a gun's reckless discharge. The majority of Ireland's coronavirus restrictions have now been lifted. COVID passes are no longer required for entry to restaurants and entertainment venues, with live events now able to return to full capacity. An 8 p.m. curfew on the hospitality sector has also been removed. The country's Taoiseach Micheál Martin says today's a good day in Ireland's COVID journey.
We've done this by having the confidence to be ourselves. As we face into our second century as a free democracy, and as we navigate this new phase of COVID, it is time to be ourselves again.
Police are investigating a multi-car pile-up in Los Angeles which involved Arnold Schwarzenegger. Aerial footage of the scene shows the Terminator star's SUV mounted on top of a red Toyota Prius. The actor and former governor of California was behind the wheel of the car when it happened, but was unharmed. One woman was taken to hospital with minor injuries. And a new survey suggests that 1 in 3 drivers are unaware of changes to road rules. 33% of motorists said they didn't know the highway code is being revamped, including 4% who have no intention of looking at the details. The revised code, which is designed to protect cyclists and pedestrians, comes into force next week. And sporting history has been made with a Brit winning the Alpine Skiing World Cup for the first time. Dave Riding beat 2 Norwegian skiers to claim victory in the Kitzbühel men's slalom in Austria, giving Britain its first win since the competition began 55 years ago. It's been a big week for the 35-year-old, who's also been selected to compete at the Winter Olympics for Team GB. Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's return to Nana Akua.
So it's fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Alexa had an outage yesterday, and a load of so-called smart homes were not so smart at all. I did my usual ritual. Alexa, initiate radio player. Alexa, play GB News on radio player. I did it again. Alexa, initiate radio player. Alexa, initiate radio player. Play GB News. I did it one more time for luck. Nothing. I tried telling her I loved her. Have you tried that? Sadly, nothing. It won't be the first time that's happened. First of all, I thought it must be me, so I switched her off and on again. But that didn't work. She wasn't having any of it. So I resorted to my phone and a link to my speaker to get my GB News morning fix. But it turns out that thousands, if not millions of households were going through exactly the same issue. Although some wouldn't have experienced an entire shutdown, but others would have. I know people whose lighting, heat, doorbell, kettles and almost entire home is controlled through a device like Alexa. Probably the same people who harp on about the government taking away their freedoms but are more than happy for Alexa to do it, even paying for the privilege. A load of very lazy people, me included, actually had to get up and control these things manually. Some have even forgotten how to do it. I mean, I can't remember my PIN numbers for my cards because of contactless. And I'm old enough to remember the days when you had to actually memorise people's phone numbers or use an A to Z instead of a sat-nav. And those skills are long gone now. One person took to Twitter and said this: the great thing about having smart light bulbs is that when Alexa isn't working, I can't turn on my lights. Amazon, who own Alexa, had previously been accused of being vague about how Alexa operates. In 2019, they were criticised as it emerged that staff listened to a selection of recordings of users' voices. Apparently, they'd only listened to an extremely small sample, but still, Alexa is always listening. I've read of people being convicted by a smart speaker device. Forget being infiltrated by the Chinese. If Alexa goes down, we all go down. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. Protests across the country over plans to sack unvaccinated NHS staff, but is the government set to U-turn on the vaccine mandate? The government wants to return to office working to boost the economy, but is it wise or desirable for us to be back in the workplace? And we'll be talking hidden disabilities and one woman's mission to get help and help fellow sufferers access disabled lose in an emergency. That's coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or why not tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Welcome, my panel, Calvin Robinson and Leo Kearse. First, though, I want to discuss the story I was talking about, Alexa. Do you have an Alexa?
I don't have an Alexa. I do have a Google Home, though, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't have it on anymore because I'm quite worried about it. This idea that there's something always listening, tracking everything you're saying. Because why do they give these things away? Because they want a commodity, and that commodity is us. We are the data. They're tracking us as data so they can monopolise us.
Well, you notice that if you start talking about something, suddenly you get a little thing on your phone, an advert pops up on your Facebook or whatever, and it's literally advertising the thing that you've just spoken about. I mean, you must have noticed that as well at home. But what about you, Leo?
Yeah, we've got one in the flat, and I mean, it's supposed to be, all right, it's always listening and it's taking your data, but you're getting the benefit of all this convenience. There's not even any convenience. Like, I can't seem to understand a Scottish accent. Just sit there in bed, like, for about 10 minutes every morning saying, like, Alexa, please play the Jesus and Mary chain. And it plays, like, random selections of folk bands from Latin America and not the stuff I wanted to play. So, you know,
try talking properly.
It'd be more convenient. Yeah, well, Alexa's being racist towards me because I've got a Scottish accent. It'd be more convenient to have, like, you know, a laser disc or, like, you know, one of those big old LPs and actually just take it over and put it on, or have some sort of wax cylinder. I don't think this technology is helping us at all.
You don't think so? But you just said that Alexa was quite convenient, though. I mean, Alexa's quite good.
It's supposed to be convenient.
What do you make of the whole idea that, obviously, Alexa has to be listening? Alexa is listening for you to say, Alexa. I mean, some people at home, their Alexas are going crazy now, right? Because we're talking about it.
It's so sinister. It's so sinister. Always just like a little sort of butler, a silent butler in the corner. Yeah.
So I actually programmed my own. I made my own little bot that listened out for keywords, so it wasn't plugged into Alexa or Google. And you can do it. You can do it independently. As a project, it was quite fun. Yeah. But they're listening out for keywords supposedly. But there are several thousand people that they listen to everything they say and amalgamate it to kind of, but basically learn how people talk and learn how to pick up certain words and keywords. So there's a lot of data behind it, but it's the same with any technology that we use for free. You know, Google, the search engine, everything we type is monitored and they track it all back to us through cookies, so they know our habits, what we're into. So it's when you get recommendations on your phone, it's not always that they're listening, it's that they know you. They've got an algorithm that knows how you think because everything you do on your phone and your laptop is all connected to you.
So how does that tally with your sort of mindset? Because I know you're often concerned about taking away freedoms, liberty, and all those sort of things, but then you've just confessed to actually owning some form of smart speaker that does just that.
Yeah, which is the reason I don't use it, because I bought it out of, well, I didn't buy it actually, I got it given for free when I bought my mobile phone.
Of course,
But this is part of the problem. And it was cool, I tried it out, it was very, very handy to have something to just say, turn on the lights or just turn the radio on to GBNews, of course, these days. But the problem is, I don't want the Google, I don't want Amazon, I don't want Facebook to know everything about me.
But that should be sailed. I mean, so Alexa's, you know... Oh, sorry,
it's not shelved. So
I won't say it again. A lot
of people are tuning out of...
But you're on your phone. I mean, you've got quite a big profile on things like Twitter and also Getter and all the other things. Yeah. So even though you've got rid of those sort of things, these things are also equally as, you know, intrusive on the things that you're doing.
But people need to be aware of their digital footprint. So I control my digital footprint. I put out data that I want to share on places that I want to share it. But you don't have to be hooked into the network. You don't have to use Google. You can use DuckDuckGo, for example, which actually gives you a lot clearer results because it's not tailored to you personally. It's just the algorithm showing you what's based on the keywords you've searched. So they're not trying to censor you or they're not trying to manipulate you in ways that big tech are. So there are alternatives. You can plug yourself out.
I don't think people are going to be doing that. I mean, Leo...
Well, I mean, another thing that's quite worrying, quite sinister, is the legislation that's coming through from government. So you've got the hate crime legislation in Scotland, which actually criminalises conversations in your own home. And obviously the government... That gives the government a sort of reason or a mandate to then tap into people's Alexas to see if they did tell that dirty joke or whatever offhand comment is deemed to be illegal under this hate crime legislation. So we're seeing the erosion of people's homes as a private place.
Isn't it?
It's coming from two directions. It's coming from the government and it's also coming from intrusive big tech. And fair enough, if they want to use our data, but we don't understand how this data is used. It just goes into this. They're like a black box. So we need more clarity from tech companies about how the data is used. And also, they should pay us a dividend. They're making so much money off our data. They should pay us a dividend, and then you can have different levels of access to the data, and they pay a different dividend depending on how much access they've got.
I think perhaps we need to take control a little bit and reverse this. Because if they want and will buy one of these things, then perhaps we should get like something back, like when you spend something on some of those bank cards, gives you 5% back or something.
Yeah, like Nectar points.
We should have some sort of pointing system that gives us something in return. Every now and again, they should send us something free. It's very kind of us to share our information with them. But I'd also like to know how long they can keep that information for, because I was reading about in America in 2017, somebody was convicted because of one of these devices. And this is the thing. So they went back, the police got the information, they tracked it back, and these companies say they won't give that information unless there's some real reason.
Yeah.
But how long are they storing the information for? Where is it going? Who is listening? How does Alexa listen? They haven't even quantified how Alexa kind of operates in a sense. So how is she listening? What is
So we do have
with that?
GDPR rules in this country, fortunately, so they can't keep the data for too long. But at the same time, we are incriminating ourselves. So we take our mobile phones with us everywhere. They're like a limb at this point. Of course, that's tracking where we've been, who we've been around, what other smart devices have been in the vicinity of it. So we can, courts could actually use our phones to track us down and incriminate us in a case if they wanted to. But the answer isn't more freebies. The answer is to opt out of these things. At this point, governments can win elections by targeting us on such small demographics and individual advertisements for such key sectors of society, gradually nudging and manipulating us to vote in a certain way, that is quite scary.
But it's difficult to opt out of these things. So, for example, Instagram and Facebook are now owned by the same person, or the same company. So these companies are actually sort of consolidating, and then it's very difficult to escape. So, and once you get into one of the tech, so for example, once you get the Apple products, then you get an iPad, you get an iPhone, then you're into their messaging, you're into all of their products, then they change it, then you've got to upgrade. So you continue to follow through the same things all the time.
By design, you're hooked into their ecosystem, and that's how they want it, so you never leave. So you're in a walled garden, you spend money within their network. But you don't have to be on Facebook, you don't have to be on Instagram. These are options, these are choices that we make. Maybe more of us should opt out of these things.
Well, I mean, I'm afraid I can't do that.
How many Twitter accounts have you got again?
I took my daughter's phone because she was misbehaving. Well, it was her dad that took the phone. He wasn't happy with something that she did on there. She said, I'm afraid you're not doing that. And her dad was very, very angry. I've not actually seen it that angry before, apart from like one time when he was angry with me, and then it all ended. But he was very, very angry with her. And so she's not had the phone for a week. She was like, Mummy. I mean, she kept walking in circles. I said, 1, 2, and I was counting the circles and doing the voice of emotion that each circle led me to. But she did this, and she was serious. It was like some limb. She's only 13.
Yeah. I mean, I'm preaching, but I'm as guilty as anyone. I cannot go anywhere without my mobile phone. I feel like I've got withdrawal symptoms if I don't have it near me, if I can't check my mentions or something. And that's bad. We're being emotionally manipulated.
Sucked into this thing.
Of course.
Yeah, we're simple animals. We're the same animals that were living
simple for sure.
that were living in caves, you know what I mean? And now we've got this really sophisticated tech with all these algorithms that knows exactly how to exploit us and, just get our synapses firing in the right way to keep us dependent on it.
Like, here, have a dopamine hit. Have another dopamine hit. Have another dopamine hit.
You know what they are? They're the likes, aren't they? I've got 100,000 followers. They need to know. It's terrible, isn't it?
We have to have coping mechanisms. So after the general election, the last one, I just wiped my Twitter, deleted all my tweets, unfollowed everyone, started from scratch.
Did you delete all your followers to zero?
Yeah, so that you don't get hooked and you don't get obsessed with the numbers. Like, you have to have ways around it.
You took it to zero
End of 2019.
Yeah, but you still had the same followers. You just deleted it and said, OK, I'm back now, and they all followed you back.
No. There was a massive dip. I think I lost about 30,000 followers. But the point is, you shouldn't be obsessed with these numbers because they don't mean anything.
No, they don't. And actually, when you talk about control, they are in control, because if they decide to wipe your followers, as we saw, even with ex-President Trump, I'm saying that I'm getting ahead of myself, because I think he'll be back.
Well, he's still as president, according to him.
And it'll be Truth, and he'll be setting up, Truth Social he's talking about. So that'll be an interesting thing. But so what do you think people should do ultimately with these devices like the Amazon one? I won't say it again, people have complained. Alexa! Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Alexa, turn the TV up.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? What should we do with this?
I mean, it would be nice if, like Calvin's done, if people could whatever you've done to sort of remove your device from the grid. But I know for most of us, and I know for me, the convenience sort of overrides that. And we're willing to sell all our data and all this criminal liability and whatever it is, just to be able to listen to, heart radio in the morning.
Also, and for followers, sadly. Aren't we sad for a lot of people saying they like us, but they don't even know us? It's all good, though. I love it. Listen, if you just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews on TV and on digital radio. Still to come, it's time for our great British debate this hour on compulsory COVID jabs for medics as protests take place across the country. So I'm asking, is it time to scrap the vaccine mandate for NHS staff? As ever, this show is nothing without you. So get in touch via email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell us what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews, and there's a poll up right now asking that very question. Of course, that question is it time to scrap the vaccine mandate for NHS staff? Get in touch now, but first, let's get your latest weather updates.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry and cloudy with some rain and drizzle for northwest Scotland. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, it will be a largely cloudy night, but remaining dry, a chance of the odd prolonged clear spell, which will allow temperatures to drop close to freezing. Moving east to southeast England and East Anglia, cloud will build in this evening, making for a rather cloudy night with temperatures above freezing. Across to Wales now, on a generally cloudy night, though, there is a chance of seeing clear spells, particularly in the south and east. Remaining dry and cloudy this evening across the Midlands. Cloudy skies will keep temperatures above freezing with a low of 3 Celsius, though temperatures dropping a touch lower in any clearer spells. Moving across the Pennines now, and it should remain largely cloudy tonight, though on any high ground we could see some clearer spells, allowing temperatures to drop close to freezing. Into Scotland, and it's generally cloudy with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle in the northwest, clear spells in the east, allowing temperatures to drop close to freezing in places. Across to Northern Ireland, and it is set to be a widely cloudy evening, though the cloud will start to thin a little towards dawn, lows around 4 Celsius. The cloudy weather continues tonight, so temperatures widely above freezing, though in clearer spells a touch of frost is possible. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
So this is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. You're listening either on digital radio or watching on TV. It's time now for our Great British Debate. It's just coming up to 25 minutes after 4 o'clock. So the question we're discussing is it time to scrap the vaccine mandate for NHS staff? The government's decision to effectively end the vast majority of COVID restrictions next week once again brings into question the policy of making vaccines compulsory for NHS staff. So from April, anybody who works for the health service, from doctors and surgeons to porters and cleaners, will face the sack or potentially be moved to a less front-facing role if they refuse to be jabbed. So today there's been protests against the mandate across the country as NHS workers take part in a so-called rally for freedom. So I'm asking, is it time to scrap the vaccine mandate for NHS staff? Get in touch. I'd love to hear your thoughts at GB News, or why not email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk. First, though, let's speak to the experts. I'm joined by a specialist in elderly care at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Gateshead, Dr. Kate Goodman. So, Dr. Kate, I want to talk to you about this. You've chosen not to have the vaccine. What's the reason as to why, if you're prepared to share that with us?
Hi, Nana. Thanks for having me on. Basically, I, as I would with any of my patients, I weighed up the risks and benefits to myself of taking the vaccine, and decided that I personally didn't need it. I worked on a COVID ward for the first 12 months of the pandemic, and I didn't get ill. I never tested positive. I was very heavily exposed to COVID and was absolutely fine. I'm a fit and healthy 35-year-old. I look after myself. I eat well. I exercise regularly. I didn't feel that I was at risk from COVID. So, I would never advise any of my patients to take a medication that they don't need, because all medications come with risks of side effects and harm. So I just did the same for myself and felt that I didn't need it, so I didn't take it. I also I feel that it's incredibly unethical to mandate a medical intervention, because you will cause unnecessary harm. Sorry, getting my words out. You can't force people to take something that they don't feel that they want or need. And I would never do that to my patients. Every decision I make is in conjunction with them. And if they don't want to take my advice, that's fine. I don't then try to bully, coerce, and blackmail them into doing what I want. That's unethical. It's unethical in medicine, and it's against people's human rights.
Kate, some people would say that actually, whilst you are doing things for yourself, which is very important, and absolutely, but people might say that they might call you selfish, and do apologise, for that. It's not meant to be an insult. I'm simply just reflecting what others might say. They might also say that actually the vaccine, although it doesn't prevent transmission, it does reduce transmission, and we have been told that, and I have no reason why I wouldn't believe that. And as a whole, as a collective, lots of people have this vaccine, then that has a significant impact on transmission, and that will again be something that would then reflect on your patients as well. So, is that not a consideration for you? Why does that not come into part of your calculations?
Of course it is a consideration, but actually, it's not a sterilising vaccine, so you can still catch COVID and you can still pass it on. And with each subsequent variant, because obviously the vaccines were made against the original strain of COVID, and with each subsequent variant, the virus is getting better and better at getting around the vaccine. You can see that in the figures that are coming out now. Like, there was a study published this week from Israel that shows that actually the majority of cases and people being hospitalized with COVID are all vaccinated, triple jabbed in Israel, and even quadruple
I hear
jabbed
that
now.
Kate, I hear that, but obviously we have to take into account with that statistic that's because the majority of people probably in those locations have been vaccinated. So no matter where you go with that statistic, you will probably end up with that result. But there are other statistics that say that people who are unvaccinated represent a higher proportion of the people in ICU. That's just, so we can use stats to say anything.
Not
but
actually
if we focus on you,
correct
though,
in this country.
If we just focus on you, though, and your reasoning, because there'll be a lot of others who feel the same way that you do. What if they had factored in, for example, something like antibodies? So if they'd looked and said, well, you've got plenty of antibodies, you don't even need it. Would you then take that into consideration? And then if COVID became worse, so that, as we know, we've got a weaker variant now, if it then became worse and it turned out you didn't have the antibodies, would you then consider taking the vaccine?
I mean, we shouldn't just be looking at antibodies, we should be looking at T-cell immunity as well, which is actually a longer, more broad form
but on the premise that
immunity.
I've given you, would that make things different if they checked if they could work out T-cells and antibodies then? And you realised that you didn't have those things, would you consider it then?
No, because we don't have any long-term safety data on this vaccine, and I've not been putting my patients at risk, in my view, looking at the data. So no, and it's my right, my human right to bodily autonomy to choose not to have the vaccine.
Okay. Thank you for your thoughts, Kate. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Thank you so much. That's Kate Goodman, Dr. Kate Goodman. She's a specialist in elderly care at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Gateshead. And this is what the government had to say on the matter. A Department of Health, and Social Care spokesperson told us this: health and social care workers look after the most vulnerable people in society who could face serious health consequences if exposed to the virus. Ensuring staff are vaccinated is the right thing to do to protect patients and those in care. The vast majority of NHS staff have had the vaccine, which is our best defence against COVID-19. So let's have a quick look at what you've been saying on the issues we're discussing today. It's been quite busy out there. Elliot says it was always an incredibly bad idea, especially given America's example, where it resulted in massive staff shortages. It would be at least as bad as that over here. NHS staff should be allowed to get on with their jobs. Peter says if you're on the front line caring for vulnerable people and don't get vaccinated, you are in the wrong job. Bruce makes this point: how can they work in a caring profession and not care enough about the people they're supposed to be caring for and have the vaccine? So we'll keep your thoughts coming. We'll hear more of those after the break. I'll also be asking what my panel thinks. So joining me today, Calvin Robinson and Leo Kearse. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you. It's 4:32. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. Police will meet a senior Conservative backbencher to discuss allegations of blackmail and intimidation. William Ragg has accused Downing Street of bullying and claims Tory whips have threatened to withdraw public funds from the constituencies of MPs trying to oust the Prime Minister. He'll speak to a Met detective next week, which means police could open an investigation. Meanwhile, at a rally in Glasgow, there have been calls for the Prime Minister to resign. The pro-independence group, All Under One Banner, staged a march with members demanding the end of Tory rule. In London, unvaccinated NHS workers have been demonstrating against mandatory jabs. Gathering in Trafalgar Square, they laid their uniforms on the ground to protest against government plans to sack staff who've not had their COVID vaccines by the 1st of April. The UK is taking steps to try to ease tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace will head to Moscow to speak to his Russian counterpart after the UK's invitation to discuss security was accepted. It comes after Downing Street warned that Russia will be punished if the country pushes ahead with any destabilising action. And sporting history has been made with a Brit winning the Alpine Skiing World Cup for the first time. Dave Riding beat 2 Norwegian skiers to claim victory in the Kitzbühel men's slalom in Austria. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Nana.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
If you just joined me, welcome on board. It's coming up to 37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. You're either listening on digital radio or watching on TV. So now let's get back to the big debate this hour. Is it time to scrap the vaccine mandate for NHS staff? The government's decision to effectively end the vast majority of COVID restrictions next week once again brings into question the policy of making vaccines compulsory for NHS staff. Protests have been taking place at locations across the country today over plans to sack workers who refuse to get the jab from April. So has this now become a matter of conscience as much as an issue of public health? So my panel joining me today are, of course, Calvin Robinson and Leah Okas, but also I'm joined by stats guru and former head of health statistics at the ONS, Jamie Jenkins, to get a sense of where we are with COVID. So, Jamie, welcome to the programme. How much of a problem is Omicron for hospitals right now?
Yeah, afternoon, Nana. It's all pretty positive news, to be frank. Remember now, we're in the middle of December. We had the Omicron wave started kicking off. There were people coming out of South Africa saying it's a mild variant, and it's kind of turned out to be the case. And the SAGE modelling is frankly proven to be absolutely pointless again, if you look at the data. So where we currently are, cases are coming down. They're still relatively high, but we have had significant numbers of tests. If we look at the hospital situation, I suppose the more important figures now to focus on, Nana, are kind of patients in kind of the ventilated beds, because we've had some numbers from NHS England saying that nearly half of the patients actually in hospital at the moment with COVID are primarily in for other reasons, and that's gone up now because of the spread of Omicron. So the cases have been coming down across the country. Patients in hospital has been coming down across the country. Patients in ventilated beds has been coming down across the country. So that's England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland as well. And the figures that SAGE were predicting, if Boris, for example, in England didn't introduce kind of further measures beyond Plan B, which he didn't, they were estimating potentially up to 3,000 deaths a day. Well, we're currently running at around somewhere between 200 to 300 if you look at the deaths within 28 days of positive test. But remember, those are anybody who dies of any cause within 28 days of a positive test. It's probably closer to 100 when you start factoring the death certificates and how many people are actually dying of COVID.
So it's about 100. And in your world of statistics, is that a high number of people dying of something that we should be continually tracking in this way?
Well, we get kind of thousands and thousands of deaths every week. It's about 5-6% of the deaths are COVID. Some people would say that's too high. Some people would argue and say, well, why are we focusing only on kind of these deaths when we know that we're seeing excess deaths across the country? You've obviously got your debate on the show today talking about NHS staff and mandates. It's quite clear that if you get rid of a load of NHS staff when you've got these significant waiting times, you're probably going to end up causing more deaths than what you would save. And just looking at the Omicron variant, Nana, it's quite clearly spreading across the country, even in the vaccinated and in the unvaccinated as well. And just looking at the facts and figures, Nana, if you look at the flu vaccine, where people obviously sadly die of the flu. Not so much now because there's less flu circulating. And you look at the latest figures on that, there's significant numbers of staff who haven't had the flu vaccine in the NHS in England who are working with frontline patients, but there's never been any call whatsoever kind of sack them if they don't have the flu vaccine. So I think Omicron's changed the game with regards to all of this. It's really positive news on the data side. I think, as Boris is obviously talking about easing lots of restrictions, the Devolves are a little bit behind. I think Northern Ireland are catching up a little bit. It's all pretty positive at the moment on the COVID front.
What is the death rate for Omicron?
So, well, it's difficult to link it direct to Omicron until we start seeing the ONS data start coming through in the next few weeks, because when the difficulty with the data we get each day on deaths within 28 days of a positive test, the problem with those figures, as I said, is that we've had 3.8 million people who've tested positive for COVID over the last kind of 28 days. And then sadly, some of those will die of many different causes. So the ONS figures are going to be the critical ones. And the critical thing to really focus on is, whilst we've seen this massive, massive rise in cases, we've not seen that massive, massive rise in death. So it's quite clear that Omicron is far less deadly, and it could be the game changer in the pandemic. It's kind of showing similar trends to what we've seen 100 years ago with the Spanish flu, new variants, more transmissible, less deadly. And then obviously what the flu vaccine's done over the last since they've developed them is they modify those for different variants. I'd imagine now that's where we probably need to end up with Omicron and future variants of COVID, is kind of managing as part of our annual wave. I think the more important thing, Nana, going forward is going to be the NHS struggled to cope before the pandemic. We need to really have a serious conversation and think about what does the NHS need to do so that it's not overrun next year, so we don't start thinking of restrictions, because obviously COVID is not going to go away.
I was just going to ask, what would be the risk? So we're seeing, you said 5 to 6% of the deaths currently are due to COVID or Omicron. And what would be the risk to people's health if the 73,000 people working for the NHS who haven't been vaccinated, if they were fired? Surely that would put immense strain on services, and then people would die from being unable to access healthcare. Do you know if there's any sort of objective number on that?
No, I don't think anybody's probably put the number together. Remember, though, this NHS mandate is only in England. For example, where I live in Wales, they're not planning on putting people out of work if they don't have the vaccine. And a big problem we've also got with hospitals at the moment is there's a load of patients in hospital who can't be discharged because they sacked all the care workers because they didn't have the vaccine. So you do need this really big joined-up system, and these kind of threats, if you don't have a vaccine, you're going to lose your job, clearly isn't putting public health first when you start looking at kind of where we are now in terms of the Omicron variant. But you bang on the money there in that if we've got huge waiting lists, sadly now, regardless of if anybody loses their job or not, even if the government backtracks, it's quite clear that many, many people are going to die over the next 5 years because they've missed diagnosis and missed healthcare over the last 20 months. And the government would say, well, we've had this pandemic and it's been unprecedented times. But if you're going to try and tackle that backlog, getting rid of staff when it's quite clear that the variant's going to spread regardless of if these kind of workers have the vaccine, just doesn't make any sense.
Do you think the government could be bluffing and just trying to force, some more reluctant people to get vaccinated, and they're not actually going to go through with the firings in April?
Well, I think that in part was why we had the vaccine kind of passes policy and threats of having the vaccine passes policy, then bringing them in. But when you actually look at the vaccine stats, very few people who chose not to have the vaccine, and when they brought passes in when you had to go into some venues, you didn't see a massive uptake in vaccines. So there's been numbers of coercive tactics that have been used by the government to try and get a vaccine uptake. Remember, the vast majority of people have had a vaccine in the country, but I've had two myself, but the vast majority have had it. But when they've tried to have different policies to try and force people to do it, it hasn't really moved the dial at all. So I think this one's probably backfired again on them, and I would imagine maybe the government will turn around and say that the kind of the situation's changed because of Omicron, because obviously the government's probably not going to want to back down and say it's on a U-turn, but they could probably come back and say, well, we're removing this mandate because the situation's changed because of the new variant being more transmissible.
Hi, Jamie. Calvin here. I want to bring it back to the stats since that's your area of expertise. People are quite rightly afraid because we're not used to being obsessed with death numbers in this country. We're not used to seeing the statistics on a regular basis. So I want to put some perspective into place here. These people that are dying with COVID or because of COVID, not within the 28 days, people who are dying genuinely because of COVID, how does that relate to people who are dying from influenza and or other respiratory diseases?
Yeah, so Calvin, we are seeing more people kind of, when you look at the death certificate, I think over the last 20 or so months, it's been more common to put COVID on the death certificate. It's been covered a lot. And when you start looking at it, we are seeing more deaths. And if you take the last kind of 20 months, we've seen clearly far more deaths from COVID than you would normally see from influenza. But to the summer months, when COVID obviously was quite kind of limited in terms of the spread, we were seeing more deaths from influenza and pneumonia because the ONS put those together than what we were seeing from COVID. Now, I think the problem we do have now is the main focus is on the daily figures, not the ONS figures, which is what the BBC and ITV and Sky News will put out over the airwaves, saying how many people have died and reported in the last 28 days. And those are clearly deaths that are within 28 days of a positive test, which is highly misleading now, especially when the vast majority of patients in hospital, significant numbers, are going in with COVID but not for it. So, we've seen significant numbers of excess deaths over the last few years. But I think the more worrying, Calvin, is the last 6 months, we have been starting to see more deaths that are above average, that are non-COVID related. And this, you don't see this talked by Chris Whitty at the press briefings and all these kind of deaths. So, we've got to stop the obsession with just COVID, and start thinking about all these other people who've sadly losing their lives because of the missed healthcare and all that kind of stuff.
I think, Jamie, perhaps we need to stop doing statistics. I mean, we're sick of them. I'm sick and tired of hearing numbers of people who've died. Thank you so much, Jamie. Jamie Jenkins, he's a statistician. I often get this, statistician. I'm not going to try and say it again. And former head of the health statistics at the ONS. And as ever, this show is nothing without you. So if you've just joined me, welcome on board. Let's now welcome one of our great British voices. This is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics that we're discussing. Sue Hannam is a head teacher from Lichfield. Sue, thank you for joining us. So Sue, talk to us. What is your take on all of this?
I think my biggest concern with all of this is actually sort of reiterating what your previous speaker just said, that if we're suddenly going to have a lot less NHS staff working, and we've already got long waiting lists, what on earth is going to happen next? We've simply got to sort of get a grip on the NHS and fund it properly, clearly. And I just can't quite see how, by removing vast swathes of stuff, they're going to really make any steps forward at all.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on that one, See. So, again, thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to have you on board as a great British voice. So, panel, briefly, you heard what she's saying. Sue's made some very good points, as has Jamie, and has, in fact, an NHS member of staff. Where do you go with this? What do you think?
I think we've all been on the same wavelength here, and that we need to move past these stats. We need to move past this obsession with COVID deaths, because as soon as you hear people are dying, you think, oh God, we need to do something about this. Of course, any death is sad, but when the deaths are relatively low compared to things like the flu, we need to learn to live with this virus now, and we can't put pressure on people to take medication. We can't put pressure on people in their jobs, because it's down to personal choice at this point, and the responsibility of healthy people to manage their own risk. And when we looked at stats last week of the number of healthy people without any comorbidities that are dying from this are so low that there's no reason.
But just to stop you there, though, because there is most people, when you say healthy, this with absolutely no underlying health conditions whatsoever, and that's a very small number. I mean, apart from obviously younger people who aren't in that.
What number is it?
Well, I would say it's pretty small, though. OK, so let's...
Nana, you always try and get people to justify their statistics.
Yeah, we need to back up of this. Where's your source?
Can you stop talking and allow me to do that?
This is how it works.
Can you allow me to... Well, you've asked me, so I'm about to do it. OK, so in the stats that you quoted, which was around about 17,000 people who were healthy who died of COVID over the last sort of few years, against the 150,000 or so, 52,000, let's call it 152,000, just to round it up, that would be, if we round it up nicely to make it easy for us to sort of look at this, we could say that roughly 10% of the people who died of COVID were healthy, because I'm saying 15,000 against 150,000, just to make it an easy stat to understand. So that means that the remainder, so some 90% of that, were people who had underlying health conditions. So in that respect, then I would say that roughly 90% of the people have underlying health conditions if I use just those stats alone. So that's an answer
Of the
to your
people
question.
in the country or the people
No, of the people that we looked at the stats for those who died of COVID, because that's the way I'm going to do it. Obviously, I'm using people who died of it, and then I've taken the people who died who were healthy. I worked out it's roughly about 10%.
Yeah.
So reversing the statistics to answer your question, using the ONS data, I would say that roughly 90% of the people have some underlying health
that backs up my point, though.
But I'm not saying that. You asked me a question, I'm answering the
But
question.
getting away from the stats, I mean, looking at what's going on in people's lives, the 73,000 people in the NHS that haven't been vaccinated. So my friend works for the NHS in the northeast of England, and she caught coronavirus as part of her job. So she's had coronavirus twice. She said the first wave, and then she had Omicron. So she's got natural immunity. So she doesn't need to be vaccinated. She can get a passport to travel or whatever. So, I mean, it's ridiculous that people are being coerced to have this.
But do you know what? For me, actually, I mean, I do agree in mandatory vaccination if, for certain conditions. And had this variant not come along, Omicron not come along, then I would still be saying that people in these care settings must be vaccinated. But looking at the changes with Omicron and the fact that it's less deadly, if the virus continues like that, then I would say that mandatory vaccination in this area is not necessarily needed. And that is me taking on the information as it changes and changing my mind alongside it. However, if it is Delta, if it is the third variant, then I'd absolutely say 100% people should be vaccinated, right? So today I'm asking, is it time to scrap a mandatory vaccination for NHS staff? You've heard what my guests and panel think, and now it's your turn. And lots of you have got a lot of views on this. Maeve says, if they're so reluctant, why did they administer it to the general population? Why did they make TikTok videos of their dance routines? Did they think that they wouldn't come for them? Well, I hear you, but remember, that's a small percentage of the people who work for the NHS who are sort of refusing the jab. Clive says, no, they know the job. They joined to protect people. If my relative died due to staff unvaccinated, I would sue them. It'd be difficult to tell, though, whether that person's actually giving it to you, but I understand your concern. Diana says, my recently departed mum was kept safe by care home workers both before and after the vax was available, just as the NHS staff have done. All mandatory vaxes should be stopped. Well, that's your thoughts, and I do appreciate them. But there's also a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking the question with regard to mandatory vaccination. And let me just reiterate that question for you. Should all the NHS staff be vaccinated mandatorily? And 84% of you say yes, they should be. So you see, a lot of you still think that. And in my view, I also do believe if COVID continues to be as deadly as it has been in the past, then yes, I think so. But with Omicron, it's a bit of a game changer. Still to come, though. Prince Andrew might be losing his bodyguards, and the latest polls suggest that people are warming up to the idea of Queen Camilla. Well, that's all on its way.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Dan Wootton, join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's coming up to 56 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News Radio on your TV and on your digital radio. See, I'm getting so carried away with myself. I'm Nana Akua. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? Because there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. Prince Andrew, yes, his publicly funded police protection costs an estimated £2 million to £3 million a year. However, it could reportedly be taken away as early as next month, as the Duke of York battles a sex abuse civil case in the United States. Well, who better to delve into this than royal commentator Charles Ray? Charles, welcome to the programme. So,
Nana.
So much going on. So we've had Prince Harry, who said that he wants to pay for his own protection, and yeah, he's royal, but he isn't royal, but he is and he isn't. Now we've got Prince Andrew, who now isn't royal, but he is royal, but he isn't, and he might lose his bodyguards. Give us a bit more detail on that.
This is the next logical step. There is a review going on at the moment about royal protection, and they're looking at Prince Andrew because basically he's sitting at Windsor Lodge not doing anything apart from talking to his lawyers on the telephone and on Zoom in America. He's got enough problems as it is, and he's hardly going anywhere. So he doesn't really need royal protection. And there is an argument that says that if he does have to go out, he can actually pay for his own security. Not Metropolitan Police bodyguards, but private security bodyguards.
What happens if you lose your HRH anyway? So isn't that part of the deal, that if you're no longer HRH, that you wouldn't get that anymore?
Well, in effect, yes, because the people who have got HRH are the ones who are, in effect, protected by the Metropolitan Police. And you're absolutely quite right that his royal protection costs about £2 million. And I don't think you're going to get much challenge if they were to take it away from Prince Charles, William, or even the Queen, to be perfectly honest. Everybody's looking at ways of cutting back and cutting, the costs and everything else. And security is a huge amount of money, for the royal family. And if you don't need to have that security, which he clearly doesn't at the moment, then there is no need for him to continue to have it.
I think that's fair enough. I think he should pay for it. I mean, and I suppose we'll see what happens with that trial, but it's not really the best look for the royal family. What about Camilla, though? This seems to be, there's current polling out that seems to say that she's getting a bit more popular and people are actually welcoming a thought that she could maybe be Queen Camilla one day.
I see this as royal aides, in effect, testing the water. This is a YouGov poll, and her ratings have gone up by about 6% to, I think, something like 60%. Now, there's been a careful campaign since she married the Prince of Wales in 2005 to make, Camilla more lovable, if you like, in the eyes of the public. Now, Camilla, of course, was the other woman. She was the third person in this marriage that Princess Diana referred to. And right at the time of the marriage, this is why she took up the title the Duchess of Cornwall, because if she'd taken the title Princess of Wales, which she would have been entitled to do, she is technically still the Princess of Wales, people would have gone to the barricades over it. And so what has happened is that they've been slowly, making sure that she's becoming more lovable. And to be fair to her, she's doing a good job. She's headlining some fabulous charities, particularly domestic abuse and so forth. And also that Camilla, the royalists have come up with this invented title to try and put people off trying this veil that she could end up being called Princess Consort when Charles is king. Can't happen. There is no such title as Princess Consort. If Charles becomes king, she becomes Queen Consort. So we will have a Queen Camilla. Make no mistake about that.
Ah, well, you see, that's, I suppose, it's all right, isn't it? Hopefully, soon we'll get to the lovely William and, of course, Kate, and hopefully that'll be soon. But listen, thank you so much, Charles. Lovely to talk
All the best,
to you.
I love you.
Thank you for joining us. That's Charles Ray. He's the former royal correspondent for The Sun and author as well, of course. Obviously, we love the Queen, though. She's fabulous, isn't she? Isn't she amazing? Listen, if you just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. So it's 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News on TV and on your digital radio. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and comedian Leo Kurth. Still to come, the government wants the civil service back at their desks. So I'm asking, is it time we hauled ourselves back to the office to boost the economy? Plus, hidden disabilities are the focus of my difficult conversation, and one woman's campaign to help people like her access disabled loos in an emergency. And we have a musical treat for you, our great British talent, and today is musician Adam Burkas, and he'll be joining me live in the studio. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or send me a tweet @gbnews. But first, it's your latest headlines.
Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 4. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. Allegations of blackmail and intimidation made by a senior Conservative backbencher are to be discussed with police. William Ragg has accused Downing Street of bullying and claims Tory whips have threatened to withdraw public funds from the constituencies of MPs trying to oust the Prime Minister. He'll speak to a Met detective next week, which means police could open an investigation. Meanwhile, former independent MP Martin Bell expects more Tories to submit letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister.
What's happening is in itself quite alarming. I was elected in 1997 on an issue of integrity in public life. And I think the situation now is, if anything, worse than it was then. I think it is serious. And I also think that the Prime Minister is in an incredibly precarious situation. And I would expect more of those letters to be put in sometime next week.
Well, meanwhile, at a rally in Glasgow, there have been renewed calls for the Prime Minister to resign. The pro-independence group, all under one banner, staged a march with members demanding the end of Tory rule. Boris Johnson is facing increasing pressure to quit after admitting and apologising for going to a party held in Downing Street during lockdown. Unvaccinated NHS workers have been demonstrating against mandatory jabs. Hundreds of people marched through central London before gathering in Trafalgar Square. They placed their uniforms on the ground to protest against government plans to sack staff who've not had their COVID vaccines by the 1st of April.
31st of March, I'll be sacked after nearly 48 years in the NHS.
People want me, I don't know if the government wants me to have a vaccine that I don't want to have. They want me to put something in my body that I don't want to put in my body.
My fear is, though, is that these NHS staff that have worked so hard and put themselves at risk initially are now so fed up with the way that they've been treated, is that even when this mandate is rescinded, I fear many will leave anyway.
The UK is taking steps to try to ease tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace will head to Moscow to speak to his Russian counterpart. It comes after Downing Street warned that Russia will be punished if the country moves ahead with any destabilising action. Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Tom Tugendhat told GB News by sending weapons to Ukraine, the UK is helping the country to defend itself.
Because I hope it will persuade Putin that this is a really daft idea. Because whatever he manages to do in the initial punch, and he's got the armour, he's got the men to invade, there's no question about that. But the occupation would be extremely difficult, as the Ukrainians would fight for their own country. So I hope very much what we're doing is we're dissuading Russia so that Putin doesn't make this daft decision.
The majority of Ireland's coronavirus restrictions have now been lifted. COVID passes are no longer required for entry to restaurants and entertainment venues, with live events able to return to full capacity. An 8 p.m. curfew on the hospitality sector has also been removed. The country's Taoiseach Micheál Martin says today is a good day in Ireland's COVID journey.
We've done this by having the confidence to be ourselves. As we face into our second century as a free democracy, and as we navigate this new phase of COVID, it is time to be ourselves again.
Police are investigating a multi-car pile-up in Los Angeles which involved Arnold Schwarzenegger. Aerial footage of the scene shows the Terminator star's SUV mounted on top of a red Toyota Prius. The actor and former governor of California was behind the wheel of the car when it happened, but was unharmed. One woman was taken to hospital with minor injuries. A new survey suggests that 1 in 3 drivers are unaware of changes to road rules. 33% of motorists say they don't know the highway code is being revamped, including 4% who have no intention of looking at the details. The revised code, which is designed to protect cyclists and pedestrians, comes into force next week. And sporting history has been made, with a Brit winning the Alpine Skiing World Cup for the first time. Dave Riding beat 2 Norwegian skiers to claim victory in the Kitzbühel men's slalom in Austria, giving Britain its first win since the competition began 55 years ago. It's been a big week for the 35-year-old, who's also been selected to compete at the Winter Olympics for Team GB. Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, let's get back to Nana.
It's 7 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. It's time now for my difficult conversation this week. And today I'm talking about hidden disabilities. These disabilities don't have physical signs, so we can't always tell if someone has one. For instance, those with autism may need some extra time and space to process what is around them. People with partial sight may need help reading signs and other information. I'm joined now by hidden disability campaigner Jessica Mary Logan. Jessica, thank you for joining me. Tell me a bit about your story.
Hello. So I started to live with hidden disabilities in 2017. I had a sudden diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, and that led to emergency stoma surgery in the same week. So it was a shock to my system, but then I learned how to live with that hidden disability. So I'm 1 in 5 people with a disability in the UK, with 80% of those being hidden. So that could be anything from like medical devices, issues with using the toilet, which is why I had a bowel condition, and so much more, which people don't see.
See, now you look ever so young, and this diagnosis must have come as a real shock to you. Were you suffering with symptoms of it over a period of time, and how long was that? Give us an idea, and give us an idea of what that means, because some people would have just heard of that condition for the first time right now.
Yes, so ulcerative colitis is an immune condition. So it's an autoimmune condition that affects your intestines and other parts of your body, your digestive system. There are 2 types of IBD. So there is Crohn's and there's ulcerative colitis. So for me, my intestines were infected, so they had ulcers on them. I was bleeding, going to the toilet up to 30 times a day. So it was a sudden change in my bowel habits, and they only started in the April. So it was a 3-month progression of those bowel conditions showing to me, and that's when my emergency surgery happened.
Wow. So you literally, and this is April last year, is it?
April 2017 they started, and then the surgery happened in the July.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I mean, you know, this must have been horrendous for you, because it's actually quite a short space of time for you to realise you have a condition like this and then have to change your life to cope with it. So what changes? You said you had your surgery. Did they remove the bowel now, or did they leave part of it there, or what did they do?
Yeah, so for me, my illness was actually classed as acute severe, so there was nothing more they could do. They did try treatment in that week, but there was no difference in my health, so that's why they had to step in and do emergency surgery, as my bowel could have perforated. So what happened is they removed my entire colon and also my appendix during that first surgery. Unfortunately, I had complications. I had a twist in my bowel and had to have further surgery 3 weeks later. And then within that year of that first surgery, I've had 4 surgeries altogether. So I had an ostomy-free year, and I'm now known as a J poucher.
What does that mean?
So I love talking about this. It's very interesting what they can do in the medical profession. So what happened is my rectum had to be removed as well in my 3rd surgery, and they created a man-made rectum from my ileum, which is the small bowel.
Wow. So what does that mean for you? Do you have to have a colostomy bag, or are you functioning normally now? What does it mean, and what impact does that have?
So for the first year I had that first surgery, I had an ostomy bag. So I had an ileostomy, as it was made from my small intestine. And then after that 4th surgery, when I had my J pouch, it's called takedown, so I had my stoma removed. I now go to the toilet, so I function normally, but my stool is different because of my colon being removed.
Wow, so you don't wear the thing on the front there anymore. So this thing, so it's like a bag that's on the front of your stomach that connects to what was your stomach, or what is your stomach, or what's there, and that you no longer need that, and you can function normally after all this surgery.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so I don't have the bag on my stomach anymore. I've now got that man-made rectum, and I function normally.
That's incredible, isn't it, what they can do? Isn't it just fascinating? So how does that impact you, though? Because even though you function normally, you be classed as having a hidden disability. Does that mean that you now need to use the disabled toilets, and is there anything different that you need to do to somebody else who will be using the facilities?
Yes, so since 2017, I've used the disabled toilet. So during my ostomy journey, when I had an ostomy, but then also after. So for me, I can't pass wind normally, so it builds up in my system. And as you can imagine, if I went into a normal cubicle and passed all that wind while emptying my bowels, you would get a lot of sniggers or a lot of people talking about it. So for me, I don't feel comfortable using a normal toilet, so I'll go and use the disabled toilet, so I've got that privacy that I need. But for people with medical devices like stomas, they will need the facilities such as a sink to change their bag or clean themselves up.
And do you find that people kind of look on you as if you've just come out of the disabled toilet? If there's somebody who's queuing up who's actually disabled, might be queuing up, and physically disabled, a disability that isn't hidden, do you get much of a sort of response from people who are disabled, or do you find it actually tends to be the general public who may give you some looks for using those facilities?
I'd say it's a bit of both. The disabled community are more understanding, but I have had an incident with a disabled lady in a wheelchair. When I've came out of the disabled toilet, she has started an argument saying I have no right to use it, even when I've explained my condition of having an ostomy.
Oh dear. I mean, did she not? When you explained to her, surely she would have understood and had a bit more, a bit more empathy with you when you explained that to her. Was that not how she responded?
Unfortunately not, but that's a rarity. You do get a lot of the disabled community fully understanding that you've got these conditions. My ostomy bag was full, it was about to burst. So I was in the cinema at the time, I didn't exactly want faeces over me, which is why I had to go to the disabled toilet.
Well, listen, you're an incredible, incredible woman. Talk to me now about your campaigning then for hidden disabilities and how you're sort of getting the message across that even if people look perfectly fine, they may well have something that is hidden.
Yeah, so I think for me, so after my stoma surgery, I was actually suicidal for 6 months. I didn't want to live because there was no representation in the media. There is high beauty standards that shouldn't be there, and I wanted that to change for others. We're not alone. There are a lot of people with ostomy bags. There are a lot of people with medical devices, but there is a lack of education out there for hidden disabilities. So when you ask someone, what does disabled look like? They say someone in a wheelchair, someone with a medical aid, but that's actually incorrect. So that needs to change, that stigma. So from that, I thought, what could I do? I decided to create a poster and an image that highlights these hidden conditions that can't be seen to visualize it, because there's around 65% of people are visual learners. They have to see something to know it's there. So from that, I've started to create merchandise that I raise money for charity, and also projects like empowerment photo shoots and a warrior charity pageant.
Well, listen, Jessica, you're an absolute superstar. If people want to support you on your campaign, is there a website or somewhere they can go to find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yes, so the website is called www.makingtheinvisibleVisible.org.uk.
Well, listen, Jessica, thank you so much for your thoughts. That's Jessica Mary Logan. She's talking about hidden disabilities. Much appreciated for talking to us about that. So, still to come, a big debate this hour. Today I'm asking, as COVID restrictions are relaxed, is it time to do our bit for the economy and go back into the office? First, though, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry and cloudy with some rain and drizzle for northwest Scotland. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, it will be a largely cloudy night, but remaining dry, a chance of the odd prolonged clear spell, which will allow temperatures to drop close to freezing. Moving east to southeast England and East Anglia, cloud will build in this evening, making for a rather cloudy night with temperatures above freezing. Across to Wales now, on a generally cloudy night, though, there is a chance of seeing clear spells, particularly in the south and east. Remaining dry and cloudy this evening across the Midlands. Cloudy skies will keep temperatures above freezing with a low of 3 Celsius, though temperatures dropping a touch lower in any clearer spells. Moving across the Pennines now, and it should remain largely cloudy tonight, though on any high ground we could see some clearer spells, allowing temperatures to drop close to freezing. Into Scotland, and it's generally cloudy with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle in the northwest, clear spells in the east, allowing temperatures to drop close to freezing in places. Across to Northern Ireland, and it is set to be a widely cloudy evening, though the cloud will start to thin a little towards dawn, lows around 4 Celsius. The cloudy weather continues tonight, so temperatures widely above freezing, though in clearer spells a touch of frost is possible. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. This is, if you've just tuned in, welcome on board. We are live on TV and on digital radio. It's time for our big debate this hour, so I'm going to remind you and welcome back on board my fabulous panel, Leo Kerr and Calvin Robinson. You guys, we won't talk about the difficult conversation because I know, Calvin, you felt a little bit stomach churny hearing all of that, so we won't go into that. But I just wanted to come back to our chat about the vaccinations and stuff because we didn't really get much time to talk about it. And I wondered, you know, even though I know that you're somebody who believes in body autonomy and that people shouldn't actually be mandated in any way, shape or form, can you see why people would be concerned in terms of, you know, mandatory vaccination if we had variants back like Delta and all the really tougher, more deadly things that are very infectious? Can you see why a lot of people feel strongly about it? Because the viewers actually felt very strongly about it.
No, they didn't. We need to correct on that because the poll showed that 85% of our viewers think that we should scrap mandatory vaccinations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I'm with the viewers on that. I don't think we should have any mandatory vaccination for care workers or NHS workers. I think it's a very scary precedent. I understand that people are afraid, and that's because we've had Project Fear for the last 22 months.
What about for something like Ebola, though? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm alluding to. If you have a disease like Ebola.
Ebola?
Yeah, so this is a serious disease. You know, you bleed from your eyes. It's a horrible thing. It has something like a 60% mortality rate. It's very, very high. But I don't think
anybody would be vaccine hesitant for Ebola.
No, but that's what I'm. But I'm asking.
Omicron, and
hang on, sorry.
So my friend.
Sorry. I was asking Calvin.
My friend's had coronavirus
I was
twice,
asking Calvin,
so she's got
can
immunity.
I get Calvin to? I know, and I hear that. But what about if it was something like Ebola?
I think it's an interesting comparison because with Ebola, it would be a genuine pandemic and that would see people dropping like flies around us. With this one, we haven't. It's just been like a bad flu season. So I think you can't really compare the two.
Well, no, but the argument is the same. I'm talking about the body autonomy argument.
Right.
So if we mandate
the argument would be different because I think
Why?
if you saw people dropping like flies all around you, you'd be more susceptible to taking the vaccine, especially if it was proven to work. With this one, they said, you know, there's 95% efficacy, then there's a 70% efficacy. Then actually it's no immunity whatsoever. Yeah. It just lessens severity. And then actually it doesn't really lessen severity. It doesn't lessen transmission
but I don't believe
either.
you've answered the question though, because, okay, so I hear that.
No, people have... I'll be very clear with you.
But I just wondered if you could answer the question.
I'll be very explicit.
My question is, okay, so in terms of something, so imagine the disease is Ebola.
Yeah.
Are you, and the government said mandated a vaccine for it, especially for care workers, would you be opposed to it with the argument of your body autonomy argument that you've used? So you'd be opposed to vaccination for Ebola? I'd be opposed to
any mandatory vaccination. The government has no role in telling you what you put in your body. I think they can educate, they can advise, they can encourage. They cannot force you to take an injection. And I think if we had something as serious as Ebola, more people would be taking the vaccine because it would be helpful for them. The risk-benefit analysis would work out.
What about in the case of care workers, so working in hospitals and things like that? Again,
exactly the same argument. Especially if you know, in this case, if you're healthy and you take the vaccine, you're more at risk from the vaccine than you are from the virus itself. You know, we've had 1.5 million adverse reactions to the vaccine in this country. We've had 2,000 deaths from the vaccine in this country. And as you mentioned earlier, very few people without any comorbidities have actually died from the virus itself. Therefore...
But my argument was that 90% of the people who died of it had a comorbidity, and if that were a population sample...
But that's not a population sample. That doesn't make sense.
Well,
that proves the argument that if you're healthy, you're less susceptible to this virus.
Of course, if you're healthy, but I'm saying that out of those who died of it, 90%...
They already had underlying health issues.
But if you took that as a population of people who caught...
But 90% of the population don't have underlying health issues.
I think you find it's quite high, actually.
But unless you can back it up, we can't say that.
No, I'm just using the statistics from...
But that's the wrong statistics. It doesn't add up.
Give Leo the last word on this.
Because of psychological reactance, if you try and force people to do something, a lot of them will push back against it. If you walked into a shop and you wanted to buy a Mars bar, and somebody was like, no, buy this Kit Kat, got you in a headlock, trying to shove the Kit Kat in your mouth, you'd be like, whoa, you wouldn't be like, yes, I'm going to buy this Kit Kat. It's the same with the vaccine. Obviously, it's great that a lot of people have been vaccinated. The majority of the people who aren't vaccinated in the NHS have been exposed to COVID. So they've got some sort of natural immunity. Some of them, like my friend, have got long COVID, which can be a risk factor for the vaccine. So she's worried about that. And also the booster isn't even included in the mandate. So you're not going to be protected against, the latest strains. Yeah. So the whole thing isn't thought through. It's going to do far more damage sacking 73,000 NHS staff right at a time when the country needs them at the most vital time, and right when they've given 2 years of their service, risking their lives to keep us all safe.
Well said.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Actually, like I said, in terms of mandatory vaccination, as we have Omicron, which appears to be some sort of slight saviour, then I don't actually see the need for that particular thing now.
We won Nana round.
You haven't won me round, because I still agree with mandatory vaccination if for example, if it was Ebola or anything like that. I'm telling you now, you need to
Let's
get
hope there's no Ebola variant coming.
Well, listen, you laugh, Leo, but that's not so funny. That really isn't. But it's time for the big debate this hour. So, is it time to get back into the office? The government says civil servants will lead the way in returning to the office, ensuring that their workplaces return to full occupancy. It follows the lifting of working from home restrictions in England. They plan to monitor staff's office use to make sure that the workplace is back to normal pre-pandemic arrangements. It's part of the efforts to boost the economic picture for businesses across the country, with sandwich shops and the hospitality sector having seen a dramatic reduction in footfall. But is it wise or desirable? I'm joined by Vicky Price, Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research. Vicky, thank you for joining me. Do you agree that we need to return to the office to sort of boost the economy?
I think town centres certainly need more people to be coming in. Also, some city centres need more people to be coming in, because quite a lot of what you've got at present is laying there dormant. But I don't think we need a wholesale return to the office. And it's also going to be quite difficult, because it makes a huge amount of sense both for the government and for businesses to cut down some of the office space they have. Because after all, if people can do the job that they've got to do at home quite easily, you now have the technology to be able to do it, then you can quite easily function, certainly up to a certain amount, by having people also working from home. And what we know is that the economy becomes more productive if you have more flexibility. It's interesting when you're thinking back of where we were pre-pandemic. If you were traveling in London, for example, on the tube, you could see that on Mondays and on Fridays, it was much easier to get a seat. There was, much less hustle in terms of getting onto a bus or a tube, because people were already working a lot more flexibly. And why were they doing that? That's because the technology allowed for that to happen. We have all those machines that allow us to work at any time of the day. We can now connect a lot more easily, of course. So what is the point? You just showed this picture of all these people sitting in front of their desks, sort of doing work which perhaps isn't hugely creative and quite monotonous. No much point in just sitting there and not talking to anyone while you're doing this. Much better to be doing it from somewhere where it's much more comfortable and you can move around and you can be, in fact, more productive.
Well, it does seem a bit silly, really. We've learnt some great things through this pandemic, which are some jobs can actually be done from your home. You could be more productive. And we've also possibly redistributed some of the wealth instead of it all being forced into the city centres, which I would have thought is a good thing. So why are the governments so insistent that people must return to the office, even though we are actually redistributing wealth in towns and villages that wouldn't normally see this? Surely that would be a good thing, and the government would encourage that.
Well, it's very interesting because up to a point you could understand it, because town centres have suffered, and therefore if you look at the economy, if you look at levelling up, if people just don't go in at all, the chances of any sort of buzz happening in particular places where people may want to come and relocate and have their businesses there, it just disappears. I don't think we need to just worry about the sandwich bars, for example. We need to worry possibly about other services that are provided by firms in the centre, whether it's just cleaning services for offices or whether it is construction businesses and building contractors, for example. All that, of course, slowed down very significantly during the pandemic. So there is an element of really wanting to get back to some sort of normality. So there is activity going on. And particularly the government right now wants to ensure that we have, with all the pressures that they've got, reasonable growth in 2022, which was beginning, in fact, to not look so likely because of Omicron. Well, now that we realise that it's nothing like as bad as we had feared, they're trying to get back to some sort of normality as they see it in order to get the economy moving again. But I think that's probably not correct anyway. If you look at the civil service, the officers themselves have actually slimmed down the availability they've got, and you're not going to be able to get everyone in.
Vicky, listen, Vicky, I've got to move on because I've got to get that next guest in, but thank you very much for your thoughts. Extremely useful there. Vicky Price, she's an economist, right? I'm also joined by Ellen Pasternak, who writes about the way the world is designed for men. How do you respond to the government's push to return to pre-pandemic office working?
Well, it's definitely interesting because, of course, there's, as Vicky Price was saying, there's lots of advantages to going into work. But as she was saying, also, the pandemic has really shown that it's a lot more possible to work from home than we might have assumed. And thinking about the impact of this specifically on women, a lot of women have to give up jobs after they have children because it's just not feasible to pay for childcare. And they might have wanted to work from home, but found that the idea was just considered unfeasible because it's just so far outside the norm. And it's possible that employers won't have given the idea serious consideration as perhaps they should have. And now we have proof that being present in person is actually far less necessary than we would have assumed for a lot of jobs. Of course, you do need to go in person for a lot of jobs, but that's often not the case.
Do you think then that a return to full office working will actually penalise women in the long term? Because it sounds like that's what you're sort of alluding to.
Well, potentially, yes, because if it's not necessary to be there all the time, of course, there's benefits to being there. But, it's about balance. If it's actually possible to work from home a lot of the time, then I don't see why that shouldn't be allowed now that we have proof that it can work.
Well, listen, Ellen, thank you so much for your thoughts. That's Ellen Pasternak. She's a writer. Right, we'll find out what my panel make of that as well, and we'll also hear more of your views in a few moments' time. But let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. And Dan says, people heavily invested in commercial property markets are desperate for people to return. A crash that may be on its way could turn out to be permanent now that COVID has shown business owners that office complexes that they rent aren't really needed and a lot can be done from home. Lois says it's not about office or no office. Companies need to stop making coronavirus excuses for doing superpower work, i.e. not being contactable on the phone and not responding to emails within acceptable time limits. Ellen says if offices don't reopen, they need to invest in infrastructure if they want to operate from home. We'll keep those thoughts coming. We're going to have a big chat with my panel as well after this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know what to do. Get in touch at GBNews or send us a tweet, gbnews@gbnews.uk. But first, let's get your latest headlines.
Thank you. It's 5:31. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. Police will meet a senior Conservative backbencher to discuss allegations of blackmail and intimidation. William Ragg has accused Downing Street of bullying and claims Tory whips have threatened to withdraw public funds from the constituencies of MPs trying to oust the Prime Minister. He'll speak to a Met detective next week, which means police could open an investigation. Meanwhile, at a rally in Glasgow, there have been calls for the Prime Minister to resign. The pro-independence group called All Under One Banner staged a march with members demanding the end of Tory rule. In London, unvaccinated NHS workers have been demonstrating against mandatory jabs. Gathering in Trafalgar Square, they laid their uniforms on the ground to protest against government plans to sack staff who've not had their COVID vaccines by the 1st of April. The UK is taking steps to try to ease tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace will head to Moscow to speak to his Russian counterpart after the UK's invitation to discuss security was accepted. It comes after Downing Street warned that Russia will be punished if the country pushes ahead with any destabilising action. And sporting history has been made with a Brit winning the Alpine Skiing World Cup for the first time. Dave Riding beat 2 Norwegian skiers to claim victory in the Kitzbühel men's slalom in Austria. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now back to Nana after the break.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
This is GB News on digital TV and on your radio, digital radio. I'm getting myself all confused. Welcome back. I'm Nana Akua. It's coming up to 36 minutes after 5 o'clock. So the government have launched a push to get the civil service back to full office working. It plans to monitor staff's office use to make sure that workplace occupancy gets back to pre-pandemic levels. It says that this is part of a drive to boost local economies and help the ailing hospitality sector. But do we want to return to the office en masse? I mean, is this wise when some spaces aren't well ventilated? And what does it mean for work-life balance? Let's see what my panel make of this. So joining me on the show is the fabulous Leo Kearse and also Calvin Robinson.
Wait, why is he fabulous and I'm just Calvin Robinson?
Well, no, just something about you, Calvin. Something
Outrageous.
about you. Something about you. And as ever, as you know, guys, the show's nothing without you. So do send us your thoughts at GB News, or why not send us a tweet. Get in touch via that way. Right, so talk to me. What do you think? I'm going to go with you, Calvin. Not fabulous. No, you are fabulous. Of course you are.
So you just said, do we want to get back to work? Do we want to get back to work? No, we have to get back to work. Get back to the office. It's not about what we want. If you want a proper job, if you want to go to your place of work, we have to go there. You learn things through osmosis. We're a social being. We're supposed to be surrounded by people. But also, if you say, I don't need to be in the office or I don't need to be at work, then your employer will come to realise that they don't need people there locally and they can outsource you. They can outsource your work, rather, to Eastern Asia and Eastern Europe for a lot cheaper than they can at home. But of course, there is a bit of nuance to this. We can encourage employees to be a bit more flexible for family, not for women, but for families. So if a parent wants more time at home.
Well, for women as well, because it's,
it's not just a woman's issue. I take issue with what I said. It's for families.
But if you're looking after a child.
Calvin's saying that some families have two men.
If you're a father that wants to stay at home and look after your children, you've just as much right as a woman that wants to stay at home and look after your children.
But it's not just about that, is it? Because obviously women are the ones who can give birth and have the child initially.
We already have maternity.
So when I say for women, what I'm talking about is obviously if you imagine the woman at home looking after that child and breastfeeding and doing all the things they need to do, they can then still work and do those things. Men can't breastfeed.
But my point is it's not just exclusive to women. It's a family issue and we need to be more flexible for families.
She knows that, but
I
think she was saying that forcing, getting people back to the office is going to be mostly going to affect women and be something that would be negative for women.
Mothers, not women in particular. But yeah, there is something in that. But
whichever way.
But the policy needs to support families. Families
are women, aren't they? Have I got that wrong?
All of them are, but it's not going to affect all women. Is my point. Some women may choose to have a career and focus on that. Some women may choose.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That obviously, I mean, all right, okay. If you want to split hairs, we can do. But that was her point.
No, I get that, but she's writing exclusively from the point of women. We're just going over similar ground here. But my point is, it's a family issue. We need to support families more. So there is some nuance in this. But generally speaking, people just need to get back to work.
Yeah, what do you think, Lou?
I mean, I partly agree with Calvin, but also I think the working from home boom has reduced presenteeism. I remember when I had a proper job, I'd go into the office and you had to be there earliest, you had to leave last, but you weren't really doing anything. You're just messing around, you're just there to be visible, there to impress the boss. So, working from home has meant that, we only we only do work that actually needs to be done because nobody's looking at us in our, Where's Wally pajamas. So I think that's been a really good move. And I think, UK productivity has lagged for decades now. It's lagged other G7 countries, and home working could actually combat some of that productivity lag by reducing this presenteeism. And as Calvin says, it could lead to jobs being done overseas, which is great. As a shareholder, as a customer, I'm going to get a bit more returns on my investments, and I'm going to get a cheaper product because I'm not paying some entitled British person to do the job.
I can never tell if you're joking or if you believe the thing.
He's joking.
100% serious.
This is all about he's a comedian.
The hospitality industry is dying. The high street is dying. Do you want to live in an environment where we don't have a high street and we just all live in our homes, put our virtual headsets on?
If we took over the high street and just turned it to cafes and actual places you could live, but people need homes, not offices.
The cafes can't survive if the offices aren't around them for people to go.
People are living.
Yeah,
people are living in the office.
Can I just interject there? But actually, what has happened here is a kind of redistribution. So rather than the city centres all getting all the people and everything else like that, is actually the local towns and the little villages and the things that are close to the consumers that are actually doing well because of this. So why should we go back to the idea where we're going to push all the money into the centre so that big business, because it's big business that take on those expensive offices and those expensive things near the Costa Coffees and all the posh things that are out there that are expensive, that force people at work to spend all their money, their hard-earned cash, on these places when they could simply do exactly the same job from home and actually help the local businesses, which is one of the things I see.
Pointless commute.
I'll tell you why. That would be fantastic if that worked, but I don't think it has. I don't think it's boosted communities. What's happened is people are isolated, people are lonely, mental health issues have taken a rise, and it makes people more compliant because we're not supposed to be on our own. We're supposed to be with other people. And we've become scared and we've become unquestioning because they've isolated us from each other.
You think, right, well, tell you what, this show's nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome our great British voice. This is obviously your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. David Baum is a business owner from Watford. David, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts on this then?
Hello, Nana and team. Actually, I agree to an extent. I've actually worked from home for many, many years, and I think I'm very productive. But a number of our clients have found that actually the staff prefer working from home, but coming into an office once or twice a week to touch base with their team members is much more effective than trying to struggle on the train every single day. And to pick up your point, Nana, it's busy. The cafes, the restaurants are busy all the time. People are going out, they are spending money in the local shops, but they don't necessarily need to go into the office environment on a train feeling uncomfortable.
Well, thank you for that, David. Lovely to talk to you on that. Thank you for your thoughts. So today I'm asking, is it time to get back to the office? You've heard what my guests and panel think, and now it's your turn. So lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Jay says, will be interesting down the line when those that have to commute will expect more money than those that don't. Daryl says, I'm at the office and never left the office. Yeah, me too, actually. I'm the same. Chris says, a load of rich people look like they're going to take a hit if everyone goes back to the office. Sarah says, what do you mean, if everyone doesn't go back to the office? Then Sarah says, we need to get back into the office. Not seeing my colleagues every day is damaging to my mental health. Yeah, and that is an argument. A lot of people have talked about mental health on this as well. Calvin also mentioned that as well. And a lot of you have been discussing your thoughts on that too. Keep those coming in. But now it's time to meet this week's Great British Talent. It's the part of the show where we talk to the best and brightest stars and artists and musicians that Britain has to offer. And this week, a breakthrough country artist from Southend, Adam Brukas. Let's have a listen to him in action.
I could buy you roses just to make you smile. I might not buy you roses, but I might make you cry. But I don't think much has changed since we met, but I'm still
So, Adam Brukas, Great British Talent. He joins me now in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What a nice voice you have.
Thank you very much.
So, what's your inspiration there? It was a bit sort of, is it Meatloaf and stuff like that? Do you like him?
I'm a fan naturally, and yeah, it's a terrible shame to hear of his loss. But most of my influences come from sort of like 80s rock bands.
Really?
So that sort of genre.
80s rock. So let me see. I'm thinking Dire Straits. You're like
a little.
Dire Straits are brilliant.
Mostly the hair metal bands like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and Skid Row, and all the ones that can't sing anymore.
Well, let's have a chat with my panel to find out about their views on this, because Adam is a real rocker. He likes a bit of rock music and things.
Oh, it's great to see it coming back. Those big bands of the 80s, like Motley Crue, Whitesnake, Guns N' Roses. Like, what happened to big, these strutting stadium bands? Now it's all people making music on computers in their bedrooms. So yeah, it's great to see. It's great to see some real rock and roll coming back.
And of course, that's tragic news about sort of Meatloaf as well, isn't it? Although he died of COVID, and he was...
Oh, really?
Yeah, he died of COVID, and he was one who was very much against... I don't know whether he had the vaccine, but he was against... He has spoken against vaccination and things like that, and unfortunately, he did die of COVID in the end.
Right. He was a good man fighting against vaccine mandates, and I absolutely support him in that.
Yeah, but, he said, if I die, I die. Those were his sort of words.
He took the risk. He took his own risk.
He took his own risk.
Lived his life, his own life as a man.
Maybe not the best example of that kind of stance.
Well, how old was he? 70 what?
74.
So he was at risk of the virus.
Well, just for his age, but that, then is, again, you'd think people would look at that, but again, everyone for their choice, and then, you live with your choices.
But let's not twist it to political gain, eh?
I'm just asking about that. Let's come back to Adam now. Adam, so talk me through it. So we're talking about some of the 80s bands. I said Dire Straits. You didn't give it... I mean, Dire Straits...
It's not that they're not up there, I have a huge respect for them, absolutely. I just kind of found my own feet in, I guess, more the glamorous kind of bands. I think that kind of explains the hair a little bit.
Well, I've got a wig just like that.
Have you?
I have. I've got quite a few of those, I've not got blonde. I went blonde once, and I looked like that thing out of Beauty and the Beast. Do you remember that one that travelled on the tube train? Do you not remember? Do you remember that thing? I'm probably twice your age, I should imagine. So anyway, talk to me very briefly about the song that you're going to be performing in a couple of moments' time.
The song is called That Guy. It was recorded when I was in a band a few years ago, and I decided to go solo about sort of 6 months ago, and had to politely beg the other members of the band if I could release the song as a solo record, and they were happy to let me do it. And I said, I'm sure it won't be the one that gets me on the news. And so I owe them an apology for that, because here I am.
Yeah, you're that guy. He's that guy.
That guy.
Is that guy? So what was the song about specifically?
It's kind of the idea of the passage of time with a relationship, and how you may, face certain changes along the way, that sort of thing. But ultimately, you're still the same people that you were to begin with.
Well, brilliant. Adam, we'll be listening to you perform towards the end of the show. You can get yourself ready. But now it's time to do my quick fire quiz. It's where I test my panel on some of the day's top stories. And I'm with comedian Leo Kearse and Calvin Robinson. They both got their buzzer. So let's see, Calvin, your buzzer, please. And Leo, your buzzer, please. Very nice, very nice. Right, so let's do your first question then. Question number one. What innovative technology was used to rescue a lost dog this week? Was it A, a pet tracking app? Was it B, dog spotting glasses? Or was it C, a sausage attached to a drone? I think that was... Who got there first? It was Calvin.
I'm going to go with A.
You're going to go
dog tracking app.
No, I think you'll find that it's not a dog tracking app. I'm just guessing now. What do you think it is, Calvin?
I'm going to go for a sausage attached to a drone.
That is the correct answer. Yes, it is. A sausage attached to a drone.
Finally, technology helps us.
Yes, a lost dog has been reunited with her owner after rescuers tried to lure her during a 4-day search using sausages dangled from drones. Interesting. Right, so yes, it's a very interesting little thing. Jack Russell Millie's favourite snack was tied with bootlaces to an aircraft, which was then flown over marshes where she had disappeared. Right, let's go to your next question. Isn't that lovely? Number 2. Who had been pegged to be the next James Bond? And please play along at home. Was it A, Idris Elba? Was it B, Tom Hardy? Or was it C, Matt Hancock? Oh, it's tricky. I think that would have been Leo. Or was it Calvin?
That was me.
Was it really?
I think it was Idris Elba.
You think it was Idris Elba? Do you have an answer for me?
It's got to be Matt Hancock. I saw him with his shirt off, and I was like, that man is James Bond.
No, unfortunately, obviously, you're totally wrong. It is, of course, Idris Elba. James Bond producers say that Idris Elba is part of the conversation to be the next 007. That'd be great. He's all right, isn't he? However, and if the Daily Mail, they had their way, the next 007 would be Matt Hancock.
Oh, no, let's not look at these. No.
I remember that piece. They suggest that the hapless former health secretary had got a new brief and was on the backbench, 007. Right, let's do the next question. Question number 3. Which chocolate company has gone woke? Is it A, Kit Kat, B, Snickers, or C, M&M's? Leo?
It's M&M's.
It's M&M's with their white go-go boots and thick lashes. The green M&M's was considered the Marilyn Monroe of the confectionery world. But now, parent company Mars announced that the M&M squad will be undergoing a progressive makeover. Green will now wear trainers in order to reflect confidence and empowerment as a strong female who is known for more than her boots.
Oh, please.
M&M. What are they? I just can't believe you've got like board meetings with executives at Mars discussing boots on a cartoon M&M.
I just can't.
I know. I think the world's gone a little bit too far. Right, so the scores on the doors. Who won that?
Are you asking us?
Well, I'm asking them in my head.
Alex is not here today.
Calvin is the winner today. Calvin at last. This is two in a row.
I know, I'm on a roll.
There's something gone wrong with you, Leo. You're not pressing your buzzers fast enough. Right, well,
I think I actually won that.
Well, now, before we say goodbye, it's time to return to our great British talent. Alan Brukas is here to perform That Guy. Adam, take it away.
There's a face in the mirror. It don't look like me. Been a long, long road I've walked tonight. Still got nowhere to be. Made a whole lot of memories. Seen a whole lot of things. Still got plenty of blank white pages if you wanna ride with me. I might not buy you roses, I might make you cry. I know things might have changed since we met, but I'm still that guy. Yeah, I'm still that guy. Ooh. So go ahead and stamp your feet. Roll your eyes as well. 'Cause every time that you do, yeah, you know it's just another story to tell. I might not buy you roses, I might make you cry. And I know things might have changed since we met, but I'm still that guy. Yeah, I'm still that guy. I could buy you roses, just to make you smile. cry. I know things might have changed since we met, but I'm still that guy. Yeah, I'm still that guy. I might not buy you roses.
Hey, hey, well done. Hey, fabulous. That's Adam Brookhouse, still that guy. He is still that guy. He's that guy. He's over there. I wonder what the band members are going to say to you when they see this.
I dread to think. I'm terrified.
Well, they'll want some money off the royalties. Did you write the song or did they write it?
We wrote the song together, yeah. I have to give them credit, yeah.
That's fair enough. Well, you know, he's over here. He's still that guy. You missed your chance. No. Listen, it's been great fun as ever. I've got to say thank you so much to my fabulous panel.
You're killing me with the podcast.
I really should stop. I really should stop myself, shouldn't I? I don't know why. Somebody needs to stop me. Right. Well, listen, it's been fun, hasn't it?
It's always fun.
I didn't get the results from my poll as well, which I was interested about, so we'll maybe find that out. But yeah. Well,
I think we won it. Good sense won, as it always does.
Well,
with
I think it's
polls.
common sense, isn't it, really? You know, I mean, it's common sense, really. In terms of returning back to the office as well, I mean, it's a bit rich expecting people to come back when, you know, they can actually just have quite a nice life at home and do the same job, I think, perhaps.
You know what? The government should stop using YouGov. They should use GBNews polls because they're full of common sense. Our viewers are full of common sense.
Yeah, that's exactly what they should be doing. So when are you back on, Calvin?
I'll be back on Tuesday night on Dan Wootton's Tonight Live. Yep, good fun.
Well, listen, our poll in the end for the vaccine mandate, 85% of viewers said that the mandate should be scrapped.
Sound.
And it does seem common sense with the changing information. I mean, if we've got Omicron and people are, you know, not getting really sick, then it's
a bad cold.
If it becomes a bad cold, then I'm afraid even I have to accept that. And Leo, thank you so much for joining me. Have you got another gig coming up?
The fabulous Leo.
I'm back on here tonight. I'm doing headliners tonight at 11 p.m.
Can't get
So we're doing that 7 nights a week now.
Oh, he's like a bad smell. You got to
That actually is a bad smell.
No, is it? Is that jumper? Well, listen, Leo, Calvin, thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been a pleasure. Well, listen, make sure you join me tomorrow. I am back at 4 o'clock. I think I've got Yanis and also Danny Wood joining me. I've got to say thank you so much to you at home for joining. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 4. Take care. But now I'll leave you with this. It's your weather. Enjoy your day.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry and cloudy with some rain and drizzle for northwest Scotland. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, it will be a largely cloudy night, but remaining dry, a chance of the odd prolonged clear spell, which will allow temperatures to drop close to freezing. Moving east to southeast England and East Anglia, cloud will build in this evening, making for a rather cloudy night with temperatures above freezing. Across to Wales now, on a generally cloudy night, though, there is a chance of seeing clear spells, particularly in the south and east. Remaining dry and cloudy this evening across the Midlands. Cloudy skies will keep temperatures above freezing with a low of 3 Celsius, though temperatures dropping a touch lower in any clearer spells.